Othering Podcast explores the world of marginalized communities with a focus on the disabled and LGBTQ+. In our discussions, we will provide a platform for our guests to advocate and share their stories. By delving deep into their difficulties and successes, we will explore the changes necessary to improve lives everywhere. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to the Othering Podcast with Mike and Dory. Step inside a world where animals walk, talk, and think just like us. This collection of 30 short stories, each starring unforgettable anthropomorphic characters, is written with one simple philosophy: everyone is welcome at the zoo.
Created for readers of all ages, these stories celebrate diversity, imagination, and the joy of seeing the world through different eyes. From clever foxes to thoughtful elephants, every tale offers humor, heart, and a fresh perspective on what it means to be human, told through the voices of the creatures we love. Whether you're looking for a quick read, a thoughtful escape, educational value, or even a modern set of bedtime stories, Welcome to the Zoo is your ticket to adventure.
Welcome to the Zoo is available now on Amazon in hardcover, paperback, Kindle, and free with Kindle Unlimited.
Welcome to the Zoo by Paul Smith.
PEP Radio, part of the Pennsylvania Equality Project, advocates for the rights of LGBTQ+ people, the disabled, and marginalized communities. We play music from all 7 continents from 1928 through 2025 in English, Spanish, German, African tribal languages, Korean, and Japanese. We also offer news, history lessons, and are proud to include the Othering Podcast in our programming lineup. Tune in on the Live 365 app, Roku, and Alexa every Saturday and Sunday at 4 p.m.
All right, today we are talking to Andrew Gurza. He is an award-winning disability awareness consultant and the author of the book, Notes from a Queer Cripple, How to Cultivate Queer Disabled Joy, and then in parentheses, and be hot while doing it. Andrew uses they, he pronouns and identifies proudly as severely disabled. He was the subject of an award-winning National Film Board of Canada documentary, Picture This, and he has guested on numerous podcasts and spoken all over the world on sex, disability, and what it means to be a queer cripple. He was also a production consultant and actor on the Queer as Folk reboot in 2022, and he is a host of the Disability After Dark, the podcast, shining a bright light on disability stories, which has won and been nominated for multiple awards. And he is the creator of the hashtag Disabled People Are Hot, and we will talk more about how to find him. Welcome, Andrew. It's an honor to have you.
Yes, it's a huge honor.
Thank you for having me today.
I greatly appreciate you speaking with us. I wanted
to be here.
I wanted to start with on social media, on Instagram specifically. I remember you talking to somebody, and they had asked, are they even allowed to say the word cripple? Mm-hmm. And your response, could you share that again? Like, how do you feel about the word cripple?
Yeah, sure. It's a word that I've reclaimed for myself. It's a word that I would not recommend if you see a visibly disabled person or an invisibly disabled person in the world. Please don't run up to them and say, "Hey, cripple, what's up?" Don't do that. That's not, would not recommend. 0 out of 10. But for me, it's a reclamation. I already know, because of my disability, how I'm looked at and how I'm perceived in the world. And unfortunately, I'm not perceived in the best way because people are afraid to encounter disability, especially in the populations that I work in and live in. I talk predominantly with queer people. And so, they really don't know how to navigate disability. And so cripple is my way of pushing back against all of that and saying, well, you're already going to perceive me in a weird way. Let me beat you to the punch and use that terminology to describe myself. I think that, crip has been used in activist spaces for many, many years now. And I think it's a personal choice for everybody. A lot of disabled folks don't like it. Doesn't resonate with them. But for me, it's an important signifier of I know how you feel about me. I don't really care. Here's who I am.
I like that a lot.
That's great, yeah.
Because you hear so many different times, like Florida is trying. I saw somewhere that Florida was trying to push a bill where instead of disabled, it's something like differently abled. That's
Oh
Uniquely,
the
no.
or
Oh
uniquely
no.
uniquely,
abled.
yeah, uniquely abled. And I just feel like, why? Why do we have to do that?
Like, what if you're not able? Like, I'm not a. I am. That's part of why I also use severely disabled to describe myself, because I'm not able. I'll never be able. I'll never be, quote unquote, independent in the way people assume that disabled people should be independent. So, severely disabled is another term that I use to describe my experience because if we're honest, my disability is not going to get worse. I have or sorry, my disability is not going to get better. I have spastic quadriplegic cerebral palsy, and a lot of people living with CP, and especially this level of CP and more pronounced levels, there is no there is no research or stuff for them after 18, after 19. So nobody really knows how our population is going to fare as they get older, but I can guess that I'm not gonna magically get better. So severely disabled is a really nice way of showing people that it's more than just paralysis that we're talking about. Oftentimes people think about disability only as paralysis, and they, of course, that population has their own challenges to navigate, of course. I'm not saying that one is better off than the other, but I'm saying the way that the media portrays disability can be really dangerous. And so by me saying I'm a cripple and severely disabled, I'm setting markers for how I want you to perceive me in the world.
And we should set the markers, and we should be the ones that are, defining the terms that are used to describe us. I mean, I'm not differently abled. I'm disabled.
But it's kind of sad that we have to do that.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a problem. We're all people, we're all humans, and we're all beautiful no matter what. But I
But
understand why.
yeah, and I also think that, there are some disabled folks that I know who use differently able, and that's the term for them, and that's okay. And I think part of me thinks also, though, I think, not to go off on a huge tangent, but I'll just go off for a second.
Go
I
ahead.
th I think that we are so hung up on the language of disability that it's almost detracting from the stuff we should be focusing on. Like, I don't really care if you call me a cripple. I don't really care. I care that, I live in Canada, but I was born in the States. So I care that Medicaid is being stripped away. I care that Medicare is being gutted. I care that disabled people are dying every day because they're not getting the treatments they need. And I think sometimes the infighting we have within our population is really removing the stuff we should be standing up for.
I agree. We need to stand up and, there's always a time for those petty fights of, certain words or whatever it is that you wish to argue about amongst each other. But we need to realize that it's impossible to move forward, have any of the, accommodations that we need in order to survive and thrive without being able to, worry about the right things, which is whether or not we have accessibility to not just buildings, but to people, our healthcare, and just saying that, well, we'll just cut off 70 million people.
900
Yeah,
million,
nine
like, what
hundred
is it?
million.
Yeah, 900 million people and like a ton of hundreds of millions of dollars that are now going into he who shall not be named coffers. And, it just makes me really upset that this is the world we're living in. I would much rather fight about that than whether or not you call yourself a cripple or whether or not I call myself differently abled. Like, I think that sometimes we get mired in this crap and we don't need to be doing that.
No, I agree.
Exactly.
I just don't want non-disabled people telling us how we're supposed to describe ourselves. And it's almost like, as you know, I am mixed person. I'm of color. So I don't want you necessarily to define for me who I am.
Of
I want
course.
to be able to define who I am. So if you
Of
want to
course.
say differently abled or crippled or disabled, please, call yourselves what you feel is
But
right for you.
I agree. Like in policy, if Florida does decide that uniquely able, which already makes me want to barf, is like the term they want to use. I hate that. Like I think policy needs to be disabled.
Mm-hmm.
Period. That's what the word is. Personally, do whatever you want. But
Right.
when we're talking about an overarching policy language, the language of like a law or whatever it is, disabled. It should just be that.
Yeah. We shouldn't be policing from a law standpoint
No, no,
what
no.
people are called and
I don't
such.
think we should. I don't think we should at all. No, no, no.
It's kind of silly that we're even to that point. It's ridiculous that we have to constantly fight for the ability to, see a doctor and get the health care that we need. That, and just fighting with the doctors to even sometimes be seen when we need to be seen.
Yep.
There's enough
Yeah,
on our plates.
totally. There is.
You had mentioned earlier about getting the help you need, and have you had difficulties with the medical field and getting the help you need, or has it been okay
I
for you?
mean, people think that the medical field in Canada where I live is like this fantasy world of like, oh, it's free socialized medicine. Yes, it's free. Going to see a doctor is free, but you'll be waiting 8 to 12 hours if you go to Emerge. You'll be waiting, people have died in the emergency room waiting for
Hmm.
care. And for me, with my disabilities, when you receive the care, you realize just how inept the hospital staff is to deal with you, from transferring from your wheelchair to a gurney, transferring from the gurney to a hospital bed, whatever it is. They don't know how to, they have no bedside manner for what you need. And I think just because it's free doesn't mean it's good. Like, so I think people forget that when they think, oh, Canada is so great. Like, yes, I'm really glad that I don't have to like remortgage my house to get care. That's great. But I also, I wouldn't mind paying like $100 a year to know that I could get competent care.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when I receive care, when I go to the hospital, and I haven't for a year now, knock on wood. When I go to the hospital, like I worry that it's not going to be competent based on what I need.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have a lot of that issue here, not just access, but like a lot of our hospitals and doctors don't seem to ever think about the zebra. They always look for the horse. And
The
so,
horse.
yeah, it's always, straightforward. So they never think in terms of how do we accommodate and help those that aren't the horse. There was a time when I was trying to, I think it was for my back surgery, before my back surgery, I was trying to go in for a trial run of the pain pump thing. And instead of putting up the sides rails of the bed, I fell
Right.
over because I didn't realize that the railing wasn't there, even though I had a wrist brace saying a fall risk. And it's just, even
It's
that.
little stuff like that to big things like your autonomy is taken away. And so, like, when I'm in the hospital, even if it's for nothing, it tends to be a traumatic experience. But like earlier this year, I went for a endoscopy, and they've seen me before, and it was so nice to see them wheel out a Hoyer lift because they understood that I needed to be lifted from my chair in a lift, and it was so nice to see them automatically decide to do that as opposed to we're gonna lift you and not give you a choice.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like it when they are preemptive and, think in terms of how can we be better as opposed to always being reactive where it's like, well, maybe we could have done better here. Oh, well, maybe next time.
Yeah,
And
like I wouldn't be yelling at you or upset if you listened to me for a second. That's all I wanted.
Right.
yes.
And I feel like emergency rooms are bad no matter where you go. They're just in a hurry to get through so many people.
Yeah, I
And
mean their job is to keep you alive, even
yeah,
if you're not happy about it. Their job is to keep you alive.
Yes.
exactly. And they do it in any way necessary.
That's right.
So I want to ask you, how did you get onto writing about and talking about sex and
Uh,
sexual things? Because a lot of
yeah.
You know, there's a lot of myths out there that once you become disabled, you can no longer be sexual or have sexual relations and all of that really ridiculous stuff.
Yeah, and all those myths are ridiculous. And I started talking about it in part to dispel all those myths. But the truth of the matter is, I never planned to talk about sex, never. But I've always been a curious person. I've always been like, I like to kind of push the envelope too. I'm a little bit of an envelope pusher. So I was like, well, I'm queer and disabled, and all through my college years and my high school years, I came out as gay at 16, and I, wanted the fairy tale romance, the queer romance that I was seeing on TV, and I was seeing all this stuff, and I wasn't getting that, and so I tried to have sex in college, and I did, and it was disastrous, as you can read in the book. Um, and so uh, I always kind of wanted to talk about this stuff. And then so when I was finished college in 2013, I didn't have a job, and I was looking for government jobs, and I just wasn't landing them, and things weren't kind of going the way that I wanted to. I had worked in, the typical call center 9 to 5 college job for years. Didn't want to do that. I wanted a job, and I remember going to the disability employment centers and saying I want to do disability awareness consulting. I don't know what that is, but I want to talk to people about my experiences, and everybody that I spoke to from those places, and also really high up officials that I had the chance to speak to, said, "Oh, that's a really nice hobby, but that's not a real job. You can't really do that. That's not going to sustain you." And I kind of was like, "Well, fuck you. Watch me make it a job." And so I stole the term disability awareness consultant from somebody. I'm pretty sure I stole it from a website. I was like, "That's what I am." Great. So I took that and I put my name on a business card and just said, "Here's what I do when I want to talk about sexuality." And I started contacting. This is in 2013, so I started contacting like Out.com, The Advocate. There was a local magazine here in Toronto called Fab Magazine, and every month they had like a sexy guy on their cover. And I just cold emailed them and said, "Have you had a guy in a wheelchair before?" And they said no. And I said, "Great, I can be ready with my shirt off whenever you would like for this photo." And so they brought a photographer down to my home, and we did a photo shoot. And I'd never done anything like this before. And that kind of kicked it off. And then from there, there was a news story about me in Toronto, because that picture of me went all over Toronto, especially within the gay population here. And then they asked me to come in for, there was a call out for this thing called Love Your Body, which is like a spread every year on the first of the year, showing naked people talking about why they love their body. And I emailed them and said, "Cool, I want to do this. Have you ever had a wheelchair use before?" They said no. I said, "Great, I want to be the first." So I went down to the studio with my friend, got naked, put a hat over all the bits you're supposed to cover, and did a smiling photo. And then that got picked up on the news, and they called me and said, "Why did you do this? What do you think?" And I said, just jokingly, I said, "Oh, I think I'm deliciously disabled," and I didn't realize that that was a thing. And then from that kind of went viral, and so with using that virality, I created a brand called Deliciously Disabled and just started talking about sex and disability through that. So it really came from just perseverance and being like, I want to be seen. I need to make money. I also need to feed myself because I live on the Canadian version of the Canadian version of the SSI, which we all know is not enough. So I was like, fuck, I need to make money. What do I do? I guess like I can talk about sex and disability, and luckily for me, at the time, nobody was really talking about sexuality and disability openly. I mean, I'm sure that I know they did before me, and I know they will after me, but at that particular moment, it felt like nobody was. So I was like, okay, I can be that guy, no problem. And so I'm outgoing, and I like to again push the envelope. So I was like, all right, I'll just make this my brand, and that's kind of how it all came to be.
I love that.
And I love the fact that you're confident in yourself and you don't let your disability define you. And like, I know it's hard when you're not quote unquote normal to what society would think, to feel like you fit in. And it sounds like you've managed to come to a spot in your life where you feel great, and you love your body, you love yourself, and I love that.
I honestly think you are a good looking man. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
just,
Thank you.
you're welcome. But I like the way that you just went for it instead of waiting for, somebody to come around and ask you, no, I'm here. I'm going to do this. And this is, you can either partake in this or I'll find somebody else who will.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to just challenge what Michael said for a minute, gently, of course. You said, I don't let my disability define me, and I want to challenge that and say, actually, I do let it define me, and
I guess.
I, I mean that in because when we say we don't let our disabilities define us, I know what we're trying to do. We're trying to say like it's okay, you're a person outside of this thing you can't do. I get that. But for me, with my disability, like all of my disability defines my whole day from
Yeah.
getting up to getting in my wheelchair to getting support. So I like to say, kind of playfully push back and say like, yeah, it does define me, and that's totally fine. Like that's great.
Yeah, that makes sense. But you don't let it stop you, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do though. I mean, I would also say I would say back to that like I think the narratives we have around disability that are exactly what you said, which are so common, which is like, oh, you don't let the disability stop you, or you don't let the disability like get you down. All those things, I think, for me anyway, I'll speak for myself. There, for me, that's untrue. It does stop me. There are days where I have chronic pain. I have IBS. I have stuff that literally does stop me dead in my tracks. And I can't work. I can't do stuff. So to that, I would say I love when people say that because I know what they're trying to say. But I would say like it's all right if it also does stop you. If it also does,
Right.
if it does hamper your day, it fucking sucks. And we don't like it, but it's okay to be like it does impair what I want to do, or it does totally stop what I want to do, and that's all right. I think it's okay to give voice to that because
Yes.
otherwise, like we're creating this narrative of like this super the superhuman disabled person that's just not true.
Right.
Yeah.
And we should talk about the fact that we can't always be, people say that end up saying that you're like unreliable because you can't always make it to certain functions, or not you necessarily, but just in general. And I want to push back on that too because I think we're very reliable. It's our bodies that may not be reliable.
Yeah. I mean, I cancel on friends realistically like 3 times a week, realistically. And yeah, it sucks, and yeah, I don't like it, and yeah, it's horrible, but like, I also have friends that I can sit on a Zoom with for hours on end, and we can Zoom, and we're not in the same city. And I have friends who I lovingly call my symptom sisters we sit on Zoom and we watch movies and we watch shows and we have the same kind of interaction you would have if you were in person, but we do it over Zoom. So I think like finding adaptability for somebody to still be there, whether or not that's virtual or in person, it's so upsetting that we're reaching a point in the pandemic where we're still saying, okay, now you have to go back to work, and now all the stuff we put in place is being moved away. Why? It shouldn't be. If we can find access for somebody to be there, like I hate that Netflix and Hulu and all those platforms which have great stuff. Why don't they have a sharing? Why don't they let us share over Zoom or
Yes.
over?
Yeah.
Like it's so frustrating because if they did that, everybody would use the service who can't get out. Same for concerts. Same for like, I would love to see a Taylor Swift show live, being recorded live, being streamed to me live. Like that'd be great. I would pay all the money to watch that and never have to leave my house.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
And I think they should cater to that because not everybody can get out. Not
Right.
and not everybody wants to at times. I mean, regardless of whether or not you're disabled. Before that it got bad for me, there were times that I didn't want to go out. And I wanted to be, but I still wanted to see those movies or watch those shows or see those concerts. But
Yeah,
I didn't want to be stuck standing with a whole slew of other people.
yeah, exactly. And like sometimes I don't want to go out. I want to watch the show in my bed with some popcorn, alone with nobody else. Like
Yeah.
with
Yep.
and wouldn't it be so accessible if Taylor Swift or a big artist was like, you know what? I know you can't come to the concert. So like, yeah, she released that movie a year and a half ago of her concert. But I mean, what I mean is like, film it live, right there.
Right.
Like, have a camera guy on the stage with you, doing it right there, and
Yeah.
have like make the price reduced so that somebody living with a disability can actually afford to see your show, but never have to leave their house.
Yes. Yes,
It's
I
a great idea.
challenge everybody.
Like
If
Beyonce, Taylor Swift,
yeah,
Justin
Beyonce,
Bieber.
Taylor Swift, Elton John,
Yeah,
everybody.
like all those big heavy hitters. You can make it happen. You can do it. Do it. Just
Exactly.
try.
It can't hurt to try, and I bet you they would make so much more
Oh, for sure.
because
Because they
inclusion.
could say we are one of the first truly accessible concerts.
Yes,
Here we go.
that would be awesome.
And you're not limited to the number of seats inside the stadium.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So now you don't have to turn away people who did try to come, but got turned away
Didn't
because
get
there's no
there.
more tickets. Now you've gotten everybody. I mean, imagine how much streaming services could make off of that too.
Oh yeah, Hulu and Max and all those could make so much money off of that.
Yeah, I mean, they need to think out of the box instead of just, well, this is the arena. Let's just keep it here. These are the tickets for this arena at this time. Instead of, thinking, well, how can we
They
get
need
more
to
people?
hire. They listen. Taylor Swift, if you're listening, well, you're probably not, but if you are listening,
I hope so.
I hope she does.
if you need a disabled consultant on your team to tell you this, hire me. I'll do
Yes.
it right here.
And I think we need more disabled consultants everywhere to kind of create more accessibility, especially like all of these companies that are going back to in the office. And
Yeah, yeah.
it kind of, even though studies have shown that people work better when they have the flexibility of working from home, it doesn't make any sense to force everybody back into the office. And so,
Capitalism going to be capitalizing.
Yeah.
I guess. I mean, that's all it is.
Yep.
Making those rich fat cats more money, and then all the rest of us lower on the scale are getting screwed.
and it shouldn't be that, it shouldn't have to be that way. There's a way to have, I think, maybe I'm naive and stupid, I don't know. But I think that there's a way to, cater to some of that capitalistic aspects without having to eat everybody else.
Well, you know how we know capitalism doesn't work? Here's how I know this. At the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, when the world was falling apart in Canada, our Prime Minister at the time, Justin Trudeau, said to all of us in Canada, we will give you something called CERB, which was the Canadian Emergency Relief Benefit. And they said, we will give you $2,000 a month for however long you're out of work or however long you need support. We will give each Canadian $2,000 a month for however long you need. And you have to apply every few months, but we'll give it to you. And they did. And they gave it to every single Canadian that needed it and that applied to it. The economy didn't collapse. Nobody freaked out. Everything was fine. Like, yeah, businesses suffered a bit. Capitalism suffered a little bit, sure. But it showed that the government does have the means. And I think they did the same thing in the U.S.
Yes.
Something like COVID relief checks.
Yep.
So what that shows us is that it is totally possible to run an economy not based on capitalist ideals. And disabled people are the ones to show you the way how to do that. And if you just listen to us and hire us, we can show you how to do that.
Yes, I 100% agree with that. I think the biggest issue is that, especially now with our current person,
I love how deftly you said that without saying it.
it's just, he seems to hate everything and everyone. And he doesn't understand that any moment our government could, turn around and say, hey, you're disabled. Or anything could happen where you trip down the stairs, slip on a banana, anything. And a lot of people don't realize that either, that we're not that far from that one moment that can make you disabled and make you have chronic pain or lose a limb. And we need to focus on those aspects so that we can come together and make it better for everybody. And
Yeah.
he doesn't want to. And you know what, whatever. But we're gonna make it better if we have to.
I, I don't wish disability on anyone. I don't wish that. I don't wish bad things on anyone. However, I cannot wait until something disables him where he's unable to function the way he does right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that it'll be a rude awakening, and I think some people fucking deserve it. And he and all of his ilk are people that deserve to see what that's like for a minute.
Some people don't learn unless they actually
I
are
do
in
it.
that situation.
Yeah.
And those people are the types that won't learn unless they're there in the thick of it. And I agree. I don't wish disability on anybody. It sucks at times. Like sometimes it's freeing, sometimes
It's
it's,
really fucking
but
hard.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's incredibly hard. It can be excruciatingly painful. It's isolating, but I do
Can
wish
be
it on those.
dehumanizing, but I wish it on him more than I wished on any other person my whole life. I just want him to experience a fraction of what disabled Americans are experiencing right now,
Yes.
Yep.
and I cannot wait until he's denied food stamps and denied Medicaid based on the policies that he so stupidly put in place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even understand some of those policies because it just doesn't even make sense. Like
The
they're claiming,
scariest part is neither does he. The scariest part is
yeah,
neither does he. He doesn't
that's
always.
really terrifying. The fact that he didn't even know it was in the bill that he signed.
He doesn't even know what the attorney general does. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't even understand. Why do you want to? How can you even be remotely a dictator if you don't even know what the hell people do?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I mean, come on. If you're trying to be if you're trying to be Darth Vader, at least Darth Vader fucking knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He knew that his job was to kill the Jedi. So, okay. Not that I want to compare Trump to Darth Vader, because Darth Vader is way cooler.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
So,
I love Darth. Well, I love Darth Vader. I'm gonna admit it. He was cool.
I mean, he was really the best.
Yes.
Really.
He was the best villain and best like protagonist ever, and just
I mean, did I love Anakin Skywalker? Not so much, but did I love Darth? Yeah, sure.
Anakin was a little whiny.
Yeah,
yes,
Not
Anakin
that
was.
motivator.
No, that was
Oh,
Luke.
that was Luke. I'm sorry.
Although-
They all were.
Yeah, Anakin was whiny though. I mean,
he was. He cried about grains of sand for like a good
yeah.
20 minutes.
I got
What was the
sad.
question? We got up on a huge tangent there. I don't remember what we were actually talking about.
That's what I like about having conversations is that we
don't.
can go off all over the place and just have fun and talk about so many things. But I honestly, I don't remember.
I have a new question based on what we were just talking about with movies. You've been in a couple TV shows and on the crew of some television series. How did that come about, and what was that like? That had to be pretty cool.
Being a part of like the Queer as Folk
Queer as
series.
Folk,
Yes.
yeah, and the
Um,
on the board of Picture This.
yeah. Picture this. I was approached by the National Film Board of Canada. They were looking for a documentary subject, and they approached me out of the blue and said, "Can we follow your life for a year and a half and film this 30-minute doc?" It's always cool to be asked to do stuff like that, and I really enjoyed that the producer was not disabled. She had no real lived experience of disability when we shot that film, now almost 10 years ago. When did we shoot that? 17? Yeah, 8 years ago, almost 10 years ago. I loved doing that because I got to talk about sex and disability, and that film went all over the world. And is now on YouTube, and people can watch it, and it's everywhere. So I'm really, really proud of that. And I mean, that was a stitch in time of what I do now. And then Queer as Folk, the creator of the reboot, which is now canceled, rest in peace. But the creator of the reboot, Stephen Dunn, a lovely, lovely Canadian, and he had known my work, and he reached out to me one day and he said over coffee, "I'm thinking about getting the rights to Queer as Folk to do a reboot." And I was like, "That's really fucking cool, great." So we're having coffee, and he's telling me all this, and he was like, "I want to have a disabled character, and I need somebody, and I need some people to help me make sure that these characters are accurate, that they talk about disability correctly, that we show them, fucking and having sex. And I'd love for you to be a consultant. And I said, oh yeah, that's great. And so I agreed to that. And then they went away for like a year or two and got the rights and things happened. And then they came back to me and said, okay, we're doing it. Would you read over all the scripts and just give us ideas how to make these characters come to life? And I was like, that's really cool. So I got to read every script and give them ideas. Whether or not they use them, I don't know, because I typically the stuff that I work on, I don't watch stuff that I help with because it's weird. So I haven't seen it actually, but um, one of the episodes, episode 4, is called, I can't remember the exact name, but something like disabled people fuck or something like that,
Hmm.
and it was based on a sex party that I had in Toronto back in 2015. And so they were like, we want to have this party based on what you did. Would you come down to Louisiana where we're filming and shoot a day with us? And I was like, well, that's really cool. So, like, I got my mom, we got in a flight January of 22, and, they had told me what my scene was. One of my scenes is I'm in a sling, like a disability sling, and I'm fucking a dude on camera. And that was like really weird because my mom was my caregiver and we were like there doing it. But it was so cool to see this thing that I had actually done now be immortalized in, like, when I was growing up at 16, 17 in the early 2000s, Queer as Folk was like the show to watch if you were a queer
Yep.
disabled, if you were a queer man, especially. Queer as Folk was like, this is what queer life is. And so I loved that show, and I used to watch it secretly on VHS. There's a rimming scene in that show that is like iconic for queer men. So to be asked to be a part of like the next generation of this iconic show that like queer men particularly understood really, really well was so like I was so excited to be a part of that. And I love that I got to work with my friend Ryan O'Connell, who was on Special. He was also part of that. So like to work with and to have I had a line in that show where I say something like, "Excuse me, do you know where the straws are?" or something like that. And so like I got to sit down with them and craft it out, and they got to understand like what it takes to fly somebody in to do who's severely disabled to do a day of shooting. It's a lot more strenuous than I think anyone in production understood. But to know, and at the end of that big party scene, at the end of wrapping it, it was like a 18-hour day we shot this thing. At the end of all of that, the producer said to me, I was going home, and the producer said, you've because of you, we created something beautiful. Because of what you told us and shared with us, this is now immortalized on TV forever. And like that makes me so happy that I got to be a part of something that showed disabled people having sex, that showed them as full, complicated, messy human beings. And I think that I just want to see more of that. And I think it's really unfortunate that in 2025, almost 26 now, like we're still seeing disabled people in such a two-dimensional way. And I think like there are so many folks doing great work trying to, I can't think of all their names right now, of course, because I need to, but there's so many great folks doing work in the film and television industry trying to push that narrative along. But in my little niche of like queer sexuality, there's still not much. So
No,
I'd love to write, produce. I'd love to be consulting again on stuff like that because it's so, so important.
it is.
Yeah.
And that's the best way to kind of show other people that we are normal, that, and that we have the facilities and the want and the desires, and that people desire us and want us too. Because, podcasts work and they go so far, but to see it on the silver screen or the
Yeah.
big screen, that's huge.
Oh, it totally is huge. And I think it's such a shame that we're not in a place where every movie has a disabled character. Like there was something a couple years ago. I remember seeing a study where I think it was the UK, it might have been the US, I can't remember, but there was a study where somebody said like it should be mandatory that in every film there's a disabled person. And yeah, that kind of sucks that we have to mandate that.
Yeah.
But also, why not? That's a great start to forcing people to look at us. People are afraid to look at disability because it forces them to consider their own mortality, and that freaks people the fuck out.
Yeah.
So, like, but if we had rom-coms where disabled people are highlighted, if we had books where disabled people are highlighted, and more and more that's coming, but again, it's not really touching areas like sexuality, queerness, all those things are not really being explored.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And friendships aren't explored either. It's all, like you said, just so two-dimensional where it's almost like you blink and you missed the person. And like, there's a show, now I can't remember it, but there's a disabled actress that's in it, and she's playing a doctor. And it was cool seeing her. But I was kind of disappointed that they didn't make her the main character. Because I think it
Yeah,
would have been really awesome if she was the main character. How
it
does
was that
she navigate?
that Paul show on
Yes,
Netflix,
that's
right?
it.
Yeah.
I kept wanting to say The Pit, but I knew it wasn't that one.
I mean, the pit is also fantastic, and I
Yeah.
like listen. No, Wiley, if you need somebody to consult on that show around like disability, call me. I'm here, and I'd be willing to do it for you. Um, but
That's
like,
an
yeah,
amazing show.
the actress Jessie Yates,
Yes.
we know of each other, and I'm pretty sure like 10 years ago, I chatted with her. We haven't spoken in a very long time, but I remember seeing her like get that and seeing all the press around that, and I was so excited for her because I was like, wow, good for you. And then to find out that they canceled it, I was like, guys, come on, we need this representation. We need this kind of stuff, and I think we need we need more than just side characters. We need main character
Yes.
stories
Yeah.
that are not necessarily about pity or shame, but touch on those themes from within the disabled experience because it's so important to hear, and we don't hear it enough.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like for instance, I thought was a great episode. Speaking of those shows, on The Pit, where a black woman was having an episode because she had sickle cell, and the fact
Yes.
that they showed the bias that the doctors had, and they showed the bias that the police had of her saying, "Oh, she's just a drug addict." She's begging for medicine, and then they find out, oh, it's because she's got sickle cell and she was having an episode, a flare up. And I thought they handled it so beautifully. And we need more of those kind of conversations out there so that people who don't necessarily follow a bunch of disabled commenters and all that stuff can see how we live and how we're perceived in the world, and then understand that your bias should be checked, that we all have those that we need to check too.
Yeah, all of us do that. All three of us in the room right now have those biases, and
Yes.
we have like, and I think in the age of social media, it's so fun to like roast somebody or like, gotcha, you're an asshole. Like, oh my god, you're in the. But I think like, yeah, that gets you views and clicks and likes and whatever. That's great. But like, I think we really need to come to a place where like, oh, you're trying to learn. Maybe I shouldn't scream at you that you're an ableist. Maybe I should like find a way to work with you so that you can learn long term. I think the 30-second attention span that social media has like put in all of us is really dangerous when it comes to disability stuff because it's really easy for me to be like, "Oh, so and so's an ableist, fuck you," and then like, but how do we move it forward so that I can tell that person the thing you did was ableist, but you're not a bad person, and I want to be your friend, and I want to care about you, and I want to like. I think the way we sometimes attack people that are learning is really a problem, and I think disabled people, myself included, are definitely at fault of doing that, and I think we have to find a way through. Otherwise, we're never gonna find this unity that we crave so much.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes, I mean, I admit that I've kind of jumped to a conclusion or jumped on somebody saying something that was ableist or even racist and things like that. And it's important to understand that sometimes when people say things, it's not necessarily because of that they want to be ableist or racist or sexist. It's because that's what they were taught and they don't realize that it's that. And we have to learn how to separate the person from what they say, because sometimes what you say can be ist, but you aren't necessarily that if you're trying to learn.
Exactly. And I think TikTok and Instagram and all these platforms have made it really easy for anybody to make a statement, and everybody takes that statement at face value because we all want to be supportive, and of course we should. But I think when it comes to disability, and I have to do this too. I have to remember that, if I don't give this person grace, it's only going to end up hurting me and making me angrier. And I don't want to be angry. I'd much rather hang out with you than find reasons why I shouldn't hang out with you because you made a mistake. Because guess what? I've made mistakes too. I've said ableist things. I've said racist things. I've said sexist, misogynistic things. We've all done that, but if somebody didn't give me grace, I'd never learn.
Right.
Exactly.
That's what we have to do, is we have to give all of us, ourselves grace and everyone else grace. But I think the key thing is we have to give ourselves grace because we are human. We make mistakes. And if we can't give ourselves grace, then how do we give anybody else that grace? And
Exactly.
I think that's why we are so quick to jump on other things, because we're like, I see that mistake and I'm mad at myself for making a similar mistake.
Yeah.
So you jump on somebody else who's made that mistake instead of saying, you know what, I forgive myself for not knowing or understanding, because it's impossible to know everything about everything.
And now there's the echo chamber of if I call out this mistake, I will be immediately validated by 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 people on a social media platform. Therefore, I am better because I've called it out. I'm a better person because I chose to yell at you. I'm better because look how I'm not supporting this. And I think that's a really black and white way of looking at it. I think the human behavior is so much more nuanced than I think we give it credit for. And I think social media is just a reminder of oh, you're only hearing a third of what the truth is. Let's try again.
And I like that social media only gives us a third. That's a great, quote that you said, because it's true. You see so many of the people out there with the perfect hair or the perfect teeth and the perfect clothes and the perfect outfits and the perfect dog and the perfect house, but you don't see what they did behind the scenes to make it look that way. And
exactly.
So you get hung up in those pictures and you're just, at least for me, I would sometimes make it feel bad about myself, because thinking, I don't have that time to do that, to make those perfect pictures. And in fact, the other day I was terrified of having a picture of me in the wheelchair, not because I was in the wheelchair, but because I'm not, physically fit. But I can't be physically fit because my legs don't cooperate. And it's really hard and difficult. And I know I'm going off a different topic, but sometimes that's a part of giving yourself grace, though.
Yeah, of course.
Understanding that, your body may not look the same as it used to. It's still a great body. It still does, houses you, and it's your one and only.
It deserves all the things that you're going to give it.
Right.
And it's not always about the body. It's about the person.
Yes, that is true.
Beautiful people are beautiful no matter what size they are on the outside.
All right, now you're getting mushy.
I didn't say I was talking about you.
Oh, well, thanks. I love you too.
So you kind of mentioned it early on, but I kind of wanted to talk about your book a little bit and the process of writing it and stuff. I know you kind of talked about where the sex theme kind of came from and stuff, but what was writing that book like? And
I was actually approached by the wonderful publishers at Jessica Kingsley Publishing in 2022 to write it. And one of their publishers, who is no longer there but was a lovely human, tweeted me and said, "We love your tweets. Would you consider writing a book?" And
Wow.
I was like, whoa, from my tweets? What? And so then we had a meeting and they said, we love what you're doing. What do you want to write a book? And I had always wanted to write a book, but I had wanted to be approached by a publisher. I didn't want to self-publish. I'm I'm kind of bougie that way. I was like, I want to be approached. I'm gonna wait till somebody approaches me. And so they approached me and said, would you write a book? And so honestly, they gave me the contract in 2022, and then some health stuff came up and I got a little bit sick, and also I procrastinated a bunch, and so I didn't actually start writing the book until the fall of 23. Um, and when I did the outline for the book, they said, I was going to do this much drier, much more academic book, and they said, no, 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 we want you to just share your stories. Would you just share your stories about being queer and disabled with an audience? And I was like, okay. And so what came was like 7 mini chapters of just me sharing my stories, exploring sexuality, exploring queerness, talking about like sex work and disability, all of the things that I wanted to talk about but didn't have a space. Now I was making my own space to do that. So I'm very, very proud of it. There has been some lovely reviews of it from people who have said like, the book has made me feel seen. There have been reviews from people who like, I didn't like this part or this part, but I can't worry about that. I have to just be thankful that it's out there and hope that my words help the people who need it.
I think they do.
Yeah. And I see it all over Instagram all the time.
Yeah, I've seen like hundreds of thousands of people always talking about at how you touched them and they loved your book and just everything. And I can't imagine how it couldn't help anybody. It's gotta.
I'm well, thank you. I'm so proud of it. And also, like, what people don't realize is when you write a book and when you're given a book to write through a publisher, you don't get to write entirely what you want. They give you a very narrow outline of what they're looking for, and you have to say, yeah, I can find a way through that or not. Like there was so much more that I could have put in there, but they narrowed it down to what we want you to write about. Will you write about this? So people think, why didn't like? There's some of the critiques were, why didn't you talk about this population or this population? And I was like, because they told me that I should speak about myself, and so I think that people didn't like it because I talk about sex work and I talk about, people were upset that I was maybe exploiting people by talking about that. But I was like, no, these are the realities of being disabled. Why
Hmm.
shouldn't we be allowed? Why shouldn't my experience be out there? And so I'm very, very proud of it, but I'm wary of the critiques because I'm like, well, did you understand what I was trying to do? Like, and also, my book is the first of its kind that really, I won't say the first of its kind, but the first of a few set of books that talks about queerness and disability as openly as I did. So, sure, the first one's going to have some issues along the way, and hopefully, I'll have opened the door for someone else with a broader lived experience to say, "Oh, Andrew Gurza wrote that. I want to write something similar."
Yeah.
Do you expect another book coming in the future?
I have not been approached. I'm right now just trying to push my book out as far as I can. Um, you can get it on Amazon or wherever you get books. Notes from a Queer Cripple by me. But I would love to write another one. I'd love to do something about. Honestly, if I'm honest, I'd love to do something about severely disabled and what that experience looks like because,
Yeah.
again, that's the population of disability that is often misunderstood, often devalued, often not talked about. And so I'd love to just do a whole book with interviews from people who identify as severely disabled and what that looks like.
I would love that.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I think that's, yeah. That would be awesome to read because, like you said, it's so. A lot of severely disabled people are usually so kind of pushed into the corners
Yeah.
because they, need more or whatever it is that they require in order to survive. And they get pushed to the sides because it's like, well, that's not sexy to talk about. Or,
Yeah.
we don't want to think about how we could be like that. But I think we should talk about it. Not because we all could be like that, but I think your stories are beautiful. and should be said and shared and, shown all over
And
the place.
they're valuable, those stories. And I
Yes.
think that if the media only focuses on paralysis as the way we can enter the world of disability, they're doing people a huge disservice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I can
100%.
move my legs. They don't work very well. And, I'm in great pain, but I admit that until I really got into the community and started talking to different people, I didn't realize that you could have a wheelchair without being paralyzed.
Yeah, which just tells you how kind of invasive that media script is of like that's the only way disability is allowed to be portrayed, and I see it on social media with advocates all the time. Typically, you only see people who are, and I'm not again. I'll be very clear. People with paralysis are important. Their stories deserve to be given a space. However, the way the media only prioritizes that section of disability is a huge disservice to the rest of us.
Yeah. We don't realize all the different ways that you can become disabled and all the different ways that you can be disabled. And that, pride, especially this Pride Month, comes in all of different colors and shapes and sizes, and it's never shown. You never
Yeah,
see that. And
never see it.
even like in merchandise, like when you see models, they're all pretty like straightforward. They're all paraplegics. Some may be quadriplegics, but it's rare. You never see anybody that has
Of
maybe like
facial difference,
cerebral,
a limb difference,
nothing like that.
inability to speak, inability to like move their. You never see a model in a power chair. Like it's very rare. I can think of two right now, Aaron Phillip and Jillian Mercado. That's the two that I can think of. And I'm sure there are others, but again, they're not platformed, so we don't see enough of them, and that's a big problem.
We should all be platformed
Yeah.
because having that opportunity of seeing yourself out there on a billboard or in a magazine or on TV, movies, whatever it is so incredible.
And
And
it's so necessary, and what
yeah,
it does is it changes the conversation for the rest of us and makes us look at disability in a much wider way than we have been. And so, like, and I think, like, I want people who are hard of hearing and deaf to talk about sexuality. I want
yes,
people who are blind and have vision loss to also talk about how they fuck. I want, I want people to see what I'm doing and say, great, I can do the same thing with my community, and I want to take the mantle of what Andrew and others have done and move it forward.
yeah,
Yep.
I do. I think it's important to know all of those and be able to shatter those myths so that we can live a better life and, however best it is.
Or like, so that we can just have good sex and go to sleep. What
Yeah,
is
that too.
Like,
Yeah.
Yep.
like all of us deserve a good fuck, and like disabled people especially. And like sometimes I don't want to necessarily. I do want to shatter the ceilings and all those things, but
Yeah.
in my day to day, I'm not always thinking about like, oh, I want to make a difference. Sometimes I'm thinking with my hormones, and I'm like, I want to just have great sex right now, and have not have the ableism get in the way.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. We need to start wrapping it up. Before we go, I wanted to let you talk about your podcast. And if you could
Sure.
kind of let us know how it came about, too.
Yeah, I started the podcast in 2017 because I've been doing articles for HuffPost and articles for The Advocate and writing, and I was starting to find writing to be kind of hard, and so I was like, why don't I take these articles that I've been writing and turn them into 30-minute talk pieces? That way I don't have to type. That's getting harder. What if I just talked? And so and at the time, there were one or two podcasts that would talk about disability and sexuality, like on a very special episode, we're going to talk about sex. But there wasn't a show that was like every week talking about sex and disability. So for the first 2-3 years of my show, I'm now almost hitting 9 years. Wow. But for the first 2-3 years of the show, it was only sexuality once a week, and now it's branched out to everything and everyone. It's called Disability After Dark because people think that after dark we don't do anything. So I thought that was kind of funny and playful. And it was cheeky around sexuality. And so I still touch on sex when I do my shows, but I now talk to everyone about everything. But I am so proud of those first 150 episodes that were predominantly about sex because they weren't always good. They weren't always fantastic. And when I first started, I did it on on my my Apple speakers. I had no mic, like the setup you're seeing today. I just kind of did it, and it was really shitty. But it was putting content out there that hadn't been done before.
Yeah.
Yep. Nothing to it but to do it.
Exactly. I think we should talk about sex more often. I like sex. I mean, it's a good topic, and it's one of the best topics because it relieves stress, it relieves headaches, sometimes back pain, if you're doing it right, and just it's really good.
Sometimes it'll give you back pain.
Yes.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, sometimes you may not be able to walk for a week or two, but that's okay too. And
That's okay. I got my wheelchair. I'm used to
yeah,
that.
I got a wheelchair too, so I can just plop right on in and roll.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yes.
It was such a pleasure. Do you want me to do it? Do you want to do a plug?
Yes,
Sure,
please.
go for it.
Cool. So you can find me at Andrew Gurza on Instagram and Blue Sky. And you can download my podcast, Disability After Dark, every other Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And you can get my book at wherever you get books. It's Notes from a Queer Cripple, How to Cultivate Queer Disabled Joy and Be Helpful while Doing It. And you can book me for speaking engagements and talking stuff at andrewgurza.com.
And please check him out because he's awesome, and I love your content. And honestly, I have to thank you so much for coming to talk to us.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. I love, and I love being the guest and not the host.
Yeah.
Because I can just chill out. It's great. It's fun.
Yep.
Awesome.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for listening. Please leave a rating for us wherever you listen. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok.
Othering Podcast is brought to you by Loudcore Productions in conjunction with your support. Your hosts, Mike and Dory Morris, graphics by Joshua Morris, and join us next week on the Othering Podcast.